Welcome to the Minds on a Mission podcast, the podcast where we explore the journeys that challenge us, change us, and chart the best course for our best selves. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Amazon Music /Audible, Podbean, and Buzzsprout. I'm your host, Samantha Bailey, an entrepreneur and content creator. And today's guest is the amazing Giovanni Savo.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing good. That's a good introduction. It gets me excited. So
Thank you. I'm still working on it and trying to memorize it, but yeah, I love it.
that's awesome. It's a never-ending work in progress, like anything else in life.
Yes. So my favorite thing to do when starting off is to ask my guests if they could tell our viewers who may not know you a little bit about yourself.
So a lot of gray hair. So the story's long, but essentially, born and raised in New York. I'm in Miami, Florida now. I've been here since I was 16. Basically, since I was 16 years old, I've worked in a family business. During high school years, sweeping the floors on the weekends, maybe doing some invoicing. And then at 18 years old, I started working full time, so kind of around college. And then 24, I took over the sales department. 28, took over the company, at least the running of the outside of it, or a good portion of it. And ever since I've been working for myself. In 2018, well, really 2019, changed careers and went into finance because of some things going on in the recession that happened in 2009, which is a whole story in itself. But you've really been an entrepreneur. I'm a father of 3 teenagers, which is hard to say. It's hard to believe that they're already 13, 14, and 15, and husband married for 16, almost 17 years now. So that's my life right now. It's family and work and craziness.
I love it. And with everything, it's like reading it when I asked you for the description, a little bit about yourself. It's so lovely to see your journey and like how you started off so young, and it's like so inspiring. And so I actually want to backtrack to that a little bit and ask you about starting out. So I wanted to ask you about the business with your dad and your brother. If you could explain to us what the journey was like and what the thought process was behind that.
So we get a call one day. My dad is we're still in New York, and my dad is visiting Miami, and he calls my mom and he's like, "I have an opportunity to buy a business. We're gonna probably be moving." I guess they discussed it. I mean, we weren't as the kids involved in the discussions, but one day my mom's like, "We're moving to Florida." I'm like, "What?" So dad opens his business, takes a chance at 48 years old, borrows a ton of money, like $250,000, and most people, this is an entrepreneur podcast. Very few businesses are going to start with $0, and most businesses start with family and friends first. People don't want to believe that or want to hear that, but that's actually a big deal. So he takes a chance, and he's working in this industry that we know nothing about. And when you're a kid and your dad owns something, it's cool. So you're there and you're like, oh, you're like, there's a pride in being around that, not understanding yet the pressures and all that stuff, but just being like, oh, my dad owns that building, not understanding what that means or anything. So I got to see that firsthand. And I guess one of the first lessons I ever got as a kid is I was working on a Saturday, and this guy comes in and he buys some stuff, and the money was soaking wet. So what's the first thing you do? Like, ew, what? And when he left, my dad's like, dude, what's wrong with you? I go, it's so disgusting. He's like, you understand why it was wet, right? He's like, I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, that's that guy's sweat. The guy worked so hard. And he's like, think about what was involved in that. And it just changed my perspective. I was never degrading, but it was like a whole nother level of like, you're there as a part of someone's business to kind of help them as well. And our whole business, even though we were in the automotive business, at the end of the day was about building relationships and adding value to people. That was the thing that was always very different about us, always very different about the industry. And it's been in my blood since I was 16. So I got to see, like, on the weekends, like, we would do the invoices. So we would work Monday through Friday, Saturday half day, and on Sunday you'd be on the, like on the counter adding up the receipts because this is pre-computers. We got our first computer system in '93. Um, so I kind of got to see all that, from 3 people, and then up until in 2008 we had 60 people. So a pretty big, nice swing of business over time. And
That's
I'll just tell you the dynamics of working with my dad and my brother. Some people can't do it. We never had an issue. It was always super fun going to work. Me and my brother specifically see the world very differently. It's like black and white. And it's really cool because when we would come to a problem, like we'd want to launch something, we'd have an idea, we would argue about it, not mean, but he would see an angle I wouldn't see, or I would see angles. And we could kind of talk about it and see something in 360 degrees and without an ego kind of come up with an idea. And every now and then he's like, okay, you run with it. Or I'm like, I don't see that, but okay. And we'd be able to figure it out. So I always tell people in business, if you can have someone have some level of, somebody can look at your business uniquely from an angle you don't see, you can get some good advice from it. So that's kind of where that's the whole, that's short of the story, essentially.
right. And that's awesome that you were able to kind of see that behind the scenes at such a young age and be able to learn these different aspects of business, and also be able to have that relationship with your father and your brother to be able to do that together. And I relate to that a lot because me and my mom have that same type of relationship. I mean, it's a thing where it's like you said, it's like maybe here and there, like little banter, or you don't see the same sides, but like there's something about like working with family that's just like such a different dynamic, because when you have that really close bond, like those little differences don't amount to anything. You guys are able to work together and push through it, and it makes you guys closer, which is just awesome.
Yeah, there's something about the experience that you can't get from the outside. So when you're working and you're grinding and you're going through that, it's like I can't. It's going to sound bad, but when soldiers come back from the battlefield and they're like they were working, they were fighting together so long that there's a connection differently. Well, when
Mhm.
you're working in a business from the ground up and it's all the pressure and all the stress on you, and you create something, there's a level of satisfaction and connectiveness that you can't get from anywhere else. And even people watching it, they're not a part of it. So I have a unique bond between my dad and my brother. So every now and then we'll talk, and we're having a beer, or we'll just having conversations. And there's a different, it's just levels deep that even people that were watching us don't understand. So you're getting that with your mom for sure.
Yes, and that's amazing. To like I said, be able to have that, because I don't know. Sometimes I just randomly think about that, how people don't have the same types of relationships with their parents. I mean, I don't have a close relationship with my father, but I'm forever grateful to be able to have that relationship with my mother, because I mean, it's just like you said, like it's on a whole different level, and it's just so hard to explain that dynamic. Um, so yes, I really appreciate you talking about that. That was something that I found very interesting, and wanted to know more about that. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and another kind of backtrack. So I know, sorry, I'm thinking about the way I want to go about this. So I want to stay on that topic first before we segue, because I was going to ask about your transition in, you said 2009, right? But I want to stay on that topic first of your being a young entrepreneur. So my thoughts are, what were some of the challenges that you faced as a 16-year-old entrepreneur, and how did those early experiences shape your approach to business?
I don't know if I even knew I was an entrepreneur at 16. I was more of just like working, but I
Right.
knew that, but I had a sense of ownership, like a pride in like I said, sweeping the floors or having the keys or turning off the AC. Like there was a pride in that I definitely had. I think when I started working full time at 18, where I could make decisions, and that's the cool thing. My dad, I don't know why. I've never asked him this actually, but it's like we could make a decision, and if it wasn't completely crazy, it's like we would just try it. So if I had an idea to do this or that, so the ability to experiment, um, we had early on, And when I decided that I was going to get out of, I was going to college for a couple years, and the first thing that I learned was like business classes and like reality were totally different things. So I would go to school Tuesdays and Thursdays and work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'm like, there's no, like, theory and reality are totally different things. So we had the opportunity to buy one of our competitors, and my dad couldn't handle it with the staff that we had. And so I was like looking at the deal, and I go, okay, I'm like, we're gonna do it. And he goes, okay, why do you think? I go, because I'll leave school and I could be the one that can handle it. My mom cried for like a week and a half because I was the first one to go to college, but I just knew. So I took ownership really early. I don't know why. I think it was because it was allowed a little bit, but I also just knew that I could make decisions like that. So I don't know. I don't know where it came from, but I also think people that are entrepreneurs kind of know there's something inside where like I'm not fit for the norm, because when you go to school you have to follow rules. The valedictorian is the best rule follower. They get A's from doing the right. But when you're in business, when you're doing stuff on your own, there's a creativity that has to happen, and you have to think outside the box. You have to think uniquely. And I think people that are truly entrepreneurs feel that pressure, like I can't work within this framework. So I once I had the freedom to do that, I would never go back. So, and I tell people, when you work for someone else, the pressure comes from the outside. When you work yourself, the pressure comes from the inside. There is pressure, but there are differences, and the wins feel different, the lows feel different. They're all different. I think it's addictive to some degree. um, but I just think there's a mindset for it that either you have it or you don't, and I don't know where it came from. But I think since I've been, it's been 34 years. I'm 50 years old this year, so it's crazy. It's crazy to think it's been that long, like a couple lifetimes, if you really think about it. But yeah, so that's kind of, I don't know. I like I said, there was like a pride of owning something or having something, even if it was like an old crappy forklift in the back. It was like that was ours. Like there was an ownership that I think when you feel that, if it connects to you right, that's it. Like you kind of know it.
Right. That's leaving me speechless. I love that. And I agree too with what you're saying. Like, um, it's different because, like you said, it's like when you're working for someone else. It's like, yeah, there is potential to grow, but it's on a different level, and it is like kind of more structured to what the company wants, or it's kind of limited in a way. So like what you're saying, it's like being able to do something on your own and build something on your own. It's like the sky's the limit. There's no saying what you could do, what you couldn't do. Like it's truly all up to you. But like you said too, yes, there is tons of added pressure with that, but it's rewarding in a way. Like, and
Yeah.
and to relate to that, it's like how I feel with this podcast. It's like sometimes I'm like, oh, I just gotta work because I still work a 9 to 5, but being, kind of feeling that low energy, but then thinking like I'm building something for myself, and like I'm creating value, and I'm adding to others' lives and into my own, and just creating experiences. So it's just really being able to formulate that, and to just really try to enjoy it as much as you can. So yeah.
Yeah. That's, you have to enjoy the ride. If you're not enjoying the ride, you're missing half of the game, because it is the ride. The one thing in business is that there's always going to be a change, there's always going to be a challenge, there's always going to be an issue to solve. So if you're not into that, like I am a problem solver and I enjoy that, it's going to be miserable.
Yeah.
It can't be floating. If it's smooth, you're missing some opportunities,
Yep.
or you're dead in the water, or you're going to be, you're just, you're already dead and you haven't realized it. So
um Sorry, my brain's, I'm thinking. So yeah, I think now I want to ask if you could talk a little bit about the transition from that business, and what it was like from going from that into the financial industry. And I
well, yeah, it was born out of a mistake. Well, not a mistake. So 1990 through 2008, that's 18 years. We were crushing it. In 2007, we did like 5.3, $5.4 million. We were in the automotive paint business. So think about selling gallons of paint, the volume to do that. Huge. We had 60 employees, multiple locations. We were on fire. When the recession came, it crushed the real estate industry. Everybody remembers that. But the automotive industry was the second industry up, and about 50% of our business just disappears. Like it was a bloodbath. South Florida got hit even worse than some other places. And, we had clients that couldn't pay us. They just didn't have the money to pay us. So we're sitting there building something, and all of a sudden it comes crashing down. Now, it's a family business. And you've already heard from me, like, I had skills in the game. So you can't just walk away from it. You're like, what else do you know? If you do something for 18 years, you become good at something. So as we started to rebuild, and by the way, I lost everything then. Over the course, because of the recession, my home, rental property that I had, liquidated my kids' savings. It was not a pretty time. The one thing that I didn't lose, though, and this is so important, I didn't lose my goals and dreams. I didn't lose what I wanted. I just had to figure out another way to get there. And so many people will give up on that, or especially people that get 9 to 5s, they realize that it can't get them there, and then they just, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. That's not. If you have goals and dreams and you're not going for it, that's a sin. You got to go for it. That's what you were made for, right? It doesn't mean it's going to be pretty. So the world is falling in around me, right? My dreams and goals are getting really foggy. Like I can't see them the way it is. And I start looking at the industry. I go, this can't get us there. I had seen what the insurance companies were doing. I just had a good intuition on that, but I also didn't know anything. So I'm thinking like, what else are you good at? I love cooking. I'm a foodie. So I'm like catering company or a food truck. And I'm like, that's not going to get me there. So what is it? So rebuilding. And then what is it? About 7 years ago, a friend of mine comes to my house. We're having a beer. We're talking, and he starts talking about personal finance. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know this the way I'm supposed to. And Samantha, this is a truth. Personal finance and business finance is like cardio and weightlifting. You could be great at one. It doesn't mean you even understand the other. And so many people are like, I got my business down. Congratulations. If you don't understand your personal finances, you're exposed. I'm living proof of that. If I would have known now, back then, the recession wouldn't have been an issue. So the thing is that as I started to realize, I go, I missed this. What's the first thing I think of? I go, dummy, that's what you missed not finishing school. Now, I know they don't teach that, right? Now I do, because now as more and more I talk to people, the more I realize people don't know this stuff. But I'm like, it was on me. So what do? I go, I got to learn this quick. So as I start to learn it, I start to look at the financial industry, and I see a major flaw. I see an industry that's clearly needed, but the industry is all about the sales pitch, high pressure sales, kind of obnoxious, overwhelming, and pretentious. And I'm like looking at this going, we just built a business that has been around for 28 years by the time we sold it in 2018. Built on values, built on relationships, built on teaching. So what I started to do is take those fundamentals and started to put them into finance, teaching people, bringing value, guiding people. And what happened was it started to take off. And pretty soon I was making more money in the weekends than in the business, working 50 hours or 20. We all know time matters. At that point, I was comfortable enough to say, you know what? It's time to sell. Sold everything, gave all the money to my dad, and here's where I'm at now. So the finance business it was the opportunity that came at the right moment that I was looking for that could do what I wanted. Because I had looked at a bunch of other things. And the way finance is set up, done correctly, it's very lucrative. It's extremely impactful. And if you could build it the way I wanted to with relationships and bringing value to people, it was game on. The only problem was when you're talking to people about finance and your finances aren't perfect yet, there's a little bit of a mental game you got to play. But I knew the fundamentals were right. And the coolest part is, while losing everything, the recession sucked, it was the greatest learning experience I could have. Because when I sit with somebody now and they're like, oh, dude, I got a lot of debt, I go, I've been there. Like I have an empathy that most people coming out of college, completely, A students don't have in finance, because experience matters. And when you're sitting across the desk with someone and you're talking about their life, their goals and dreams, and you can't relate to them, good luck. So all that happened for a reason. So I look at it as the greatest training ground ever that I could have had. And so while I was going through it, it sucked completely. But now I'm like, thank God it happened. So definitely changed my perspective on it. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
That's awesome. And I'm really happy to hear your mindset on that, and how you took something that could be counted as a weakness and a weak spot in your life, and you turned it around and you used it to your strength, and found something that you love doing, and um, that helps a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't have even gotten out of that and seen the positive side of it, and would have just given up. But the fact that you went through all that, you built up a business with your father and your brother, and then all that happened with the recession, and now you still chose to continue forward and to pursue your dreams with having such a loss is just truly inspiring. And was there something you wanted to add to that?
I was just going to say, like, if you have real goals and dreams and you're not willing to fight for them, I mean, are they real then? Like, that's the craziest thing to me. But I will tell you this, though, we're all going to have challenges. They're going to come in different ways. A challenge for you may not even seem like a challenge to me. My challenge may be cake for you. You're going to come across challenges that you're not equipped to handle. And you have two options. You can retreat and give up, or you can keep walking and figure it out. My mindset was, as long as I don't quit, I may be on my knees, I may be crawling, I may be dirty and muddy and whatever, but if I'm moving forward, then I can rest on that. And I used to tell myself things like, dude, you're a badass for keeping going. Like, I would talk to myself because I would say things like you said. And listen, I was talking to myself, but I would say things like, the everybody else wouldn't do this, because I'm like, okay, I'm not like everybody else. Or maybe it was 12 o'clock at night. Like, there was a time when I was studying for some licenses, and I would tell myself when I'm falling asleep, like, most people are dreaming now. You're working on your dreams. Just self-talk to get myself motivated. Completely BS to anybody else, because I was comparing myself to people that necessarily didn't exist, but it was just a comparison that I wouldn't give up. And I will tell anybody this: whenever there's a negative, I don't care if it's a car accident, I don't care if it's a business thing. If you can stop, be an adult, breathe, and find the lessons in there, there's always lessons. Like, if you get into a car accident, you're like, what did I do wrong? Too fast, not paying attention, whatever. And you could find the lessons in it, then that event has to be positive. Can't be both. For me, it's either positive or negative. If you can extract lessons that you can use for the rest of your life, then don't look at it negatively. And then when you think about the past, you're like, well, those are all learning events and they're all positive. It hasn't been bad then, you
Yep.
know? So that's the way I look at things. And I think it's the right way to look at things. I'm pretty sure.
I agree. And that's something I've especially worked on as well the last few years, is reframing my mindset, because I feel like I did very much have like a victim mentality, and just would kind of think a lot about my negative experiences, and just kind of just let it consume me, which just it was a really tough time. But I think a lot of things just kind of happened at once that were good things, and then I just kind of started thinking, like, it's just all about the mindset, and thinking like there is good things, like you said, in everything, but just having to change the way you see things to be able to see that, because it's so easy to want to just see the negatives, but there's so much positives in everything as well. So yeah, like you said, it's just really about your mindset,
Yeah.
and how you view things. So
There's only probably a few things, really, a handful, that there's no positives to. And we're talking about extreme, we're talking about things like death, and that it's even hard to find that. But if it's not that, if it really isn't those couple things, then you got to find it,
mm,
right? Then you're like, okay, hold on a second. I'm being tested for some reason, whatever you believe in. It may be yourself. I'm tested to pass this challenge to get to the next thing. I heard one time, I never forgot it. When I heard it, it made so much sense to me. I'm a huge hockey fan. I'm a Florida Panther fan. And last year, They went to the Stanley Cup Finals and they lost. And the coach said in the press conference, he said something like, "Those guys have learned a level of hard that will better their lives for the next 10 years." And you're like, when you really think about it. So then next year they win the Stanley Cup, and one of the things they said was, "We knew what it took." So now think about when you have a challenge in life. Do you want it to be a C challenge, a D challenge, an F challenge, or an A challenge? Because you're like, if I get enough of these hard ones, I could win the championship of my life, whatever that happens to be. So sometimes when it's really miserable, if it's that bad, and you reframe your mind like, oh, this is the one, this is the moment, you'll rise to the challenge, you know.
Yeah.
So I never thought that way during the time. Like I can put perspective on it now, but that's what I was doing for sure. That's the way I thought. I can make it sound more eloquently now, but that's really what it was. I will tell you something too. You said victim mentality is important because when you take on that role, you give up power to someone else, right? That's what it is. It's like this is the problem because of X, Y, and Z that's not in my power. Well, then guess what happens? You've given away your power to someone else, and you then become a victim. But it's only a choice. 99% of the time, it's a choice. So
Very true. And a thing too that I was thinking of, like, um, really bad things happening, like death. Um, the thing too is that, like, it's another point of why it's so important to work on your mindset, is because inevitably things like that does happen in life. As much as we, don't want to think about it and try to avoid it, like, it is the sad truth that, everybody is born and everyone dies. And so, working on your mindset can allow you to push through these hurdles. And trust me when I say, does not mean that it'll make it any less painful or that you'll ever, move on, because, like, that's not what I'm saying. But the thing is, like, if you don't work on your mindset and work on, building a relationship with yourself, when these things do happen, it will be a lot harder for you to pick yourself up if you didn't do all that mental work.
for sure,
So
100%.
yeah, so that's another reason why, working on yourself and your mindset is very important. Because, like I said, inevitable things happen, and you want to be able to continue to work on yourself and not give up on yourself, because at the end of the day, you are doing these things to provide for yourself, for your future, and for other people. And so, you can't just give up. We got to push through, even though it's hard. So yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can surround yourself with people that are. This is a big one. Surrounding yourself with people that are in the game you're playing. Like talking to somebody who has a job about being an entrepreneur is not. It's like talking to somebody about training for the Olympics and they've never been to a gym. The disconnect is so huge. So when you're an entrepreneur, you're going through it. Being around other entrepreneurs matters because the judgment. It's not judgment. There's an encouragement and an understanding that's different. It's like, you know, can you imagine I want to go run a marathon and I ask a person that's never run a marathon, what advice can they ever give me? But you get to someone that's done it before and they're going to tell you a completely different set of instructions. So when you're an entrepreneur, 90% of the people around you are not entrepreneurs. And then they're going to tell you the wrong things. Why are you working on the weekends? What do you mean? Why are you not resting? You're doing what? And they question it because they don't know they really don't have an understanding. And then when you go through the crap, when things get tough, if that support system doesn't understand what you're doing, it's even worse. But if you're around other people going for it, totally different level of cheering. It's a different level. It's so deep, you know, and there's an understanding that's not there. So I would tell people straight out who are listening to this, if they're running their own businesses, they need to be around people that are doing that because otherwise it's going to be miserable when you're going through it because you're going to hear the wrong advice.
Yeah. And to add to that, a couple of thoughts I had was, I relate to the thing you're saying, which everyone's gonna experience that of, like you said, at least 90% of the people you're around are not gonna be entrepreneurs and not understand what it's like. And I've had that too, where I'm in a spot where I really want to push myself, and I'm really trying to get to a point where I feel like I'm happy with what I'm doing because I'm prone to procrastination and excuse-itis is what I call it. Things that were things before that, like, just I didn't think about, and then becoming self-aware and realizing, like, wow, I make these excuses for myself, and I really want to work on it. A lot of people in my day-to-day would be like, you're being too hard on yourself, or you need to get rest, or same thing, similar to what you're saying. And so it can make it hard to be like I want to do more when people are kind of justifying your behavior, and saying like, oh no, it's fine, you already do so much. And it's like, that's not that's not helping me with what I want. Like, I appreciate that, but also I feel like it's just enabling me to not push to do more. So yeah.
Sometimes it's they don't know, and sometimes it's mischievous. And the reason why is this is a tough topic. But there are people in your life that want you to fail, and here's why. Very simple. Because if you succeed and you come from the same place and you go from here to here by hard work, guess what takes away? All the excuses. So the excuses that they're looking in the mirror, the victim mentality of it's not me, it's not my size, my gender, my color, my neighborhood, my accent, whatever, can't win. And then somebody goes and looking like you and everything the same wins. They've taken away everything. So guess what happens a lot of times? People hold them back on purpose because they're like, I'd rather you lose than me realize that have an option. You see it all the time, which is crazy. So when you're in the thick of it, you need to be talking to people that have done that. That's why mentorship is such a big deal. You know, it's why coaching is such a big deal. And the problem in 2024, everybody and their mother's a coach. So now it's kind of like almost diluted a little bit. But having someone that's done what you're doing or at least understands it changes everything. Like I remember somebody telling me, "You work on weekends." I go, "I dream Monday through Sunday. Like I got to work on it for a little bit of time. I don't dream Monday through Friday." But when you have a 9 to 5 mentality, that's where it stops. But guess what happens when you have a 9 to 5 mentality? Somebody owns your time. That means you can never be free. So, just that you got to be careful where you get advice and guidance from. 100%.
Yeah. And I I've noticed too, my favorite way of responding is kind of sharing things I relate to, because I definitely relate to a lot of what you're sharing, especially with um the having someone kind of bringing you down, and trying to get you to stay where they're at, because it can make those people feel uncomfortable, like you said. It's like being like, oh well, this person's doing these things, and, like, what I mean, kind of takes away from their own excuses that they create for themselves. And I had an 8-year friendship that within the last few months or so I officially ended, because it was very much that of, I noticed I was outgrowing this person, and I felt every time I would connect with this person, I just felt myself pulling myself, like, back down, like going back to where I used to be, and I
Yeah.
very much did not like that feeling. I'm very much someone, especially this last year or so, who, like, craves growth. Like, that's like what I aspire every day, is like, how can I be better? So when I see myself falling into old patterns, it makes me very distraught and puts me into a very negative headspace where I'm just overthinking everything, like everything I'm doing. And then it's too much stress, for something that's just so simple of, like, okay, you're feeling these things for a reason. It is, whatever you believe. I would like to say the universe. I say that it's the universe telling me that this relationship is not meant to be, or the situation. And so just kind of analyzing that and realizing, okay, like, at least for a period of time, I need to take a step away and just reflect, see how it is, with space. And if I feel like, yeah, this is really beneficial for me, that's a sign to me, like, okay, I need to be officially done with this. So that was
Yeah.
kind of my experience with that.
Like when you hear like the movies, like when there's like a dating movie and they're like, "You complete me." I hate that because I think a person should be completed. And I think that that friend, partner, spouse, business partner, whatever, should be adding additional colors to their life. They should have a completed portrait or one they're working on. And somebody brings additional. But man, there's somebody that brings just black and darkness and they're erasing things. They're like, that's not what I want. Um, and that happens in entrepreneurs a lot because they have a big vision, they're going for it, and then they're getting, like dark clouds raining on them all the time from people around them. And it's like it really messes with your brain. It really does.
Yes. And I think I like to mention is similar to what you're saying. The Circle of Five by John C. Maxwell, which, 5 people that you spend the most time with are who you're going to be the most like. So that is something I love to mention because it's very true. And so, for everyone listening, definitely for everything that we have shared, definitely reflect on some things and think about that because if you've noticed the similar to me where you feel like certain people or certain things just aren't helpful for you and where you want to be, that it's kind of time to be like, okay, I need to make a decision because you know sitting there and spending too much time thinking about it, you're just going to keep procrastinating it and just keep thinking about it and then nothing will ever be resolved. So take
No.
a little
Yeah.
time, reflect, and make an action.
Yeah. If the person around you doesn't have what you want, let's say somebody of authority or, parent or somebody you respect, if they don't have what you want, then they can't give you advice on how to get there. You have to understand that. Doesn't mean you disrespect them, but you got to recognize there's a disconnect there. And if not, man, you're gonna live in this headspace of confusion. You want one thing, you're hearing another. You got to go here, but you're gonna go there, and it messes with you. I see it all the time with people.
Mhm.
People that try to go out and do something on their own. Because the thing is, with my business, I'm sitting with a lot of people, and whether they're employees or they're business owners, you could see these things come up, especially when it comes to money, because there's a psychology of money that follows when it comes to business is very similar, where people literally self sabotage themselves when it comes to money. That's a whole we could have a whole podcast on that, but that's a huge conversation. And entrepreneurs do it to themselves all the time.
Mhm. And too with like having other people affect their financial decisions, kind of like you said, it's like always it's a whisper in the ear. It's like, no, don't do that. And then same thing with like actually know some people who have things they want to do in their lives and they don't have that support system, and they have those people in their ears like, oh, this is gonna be bad for you, you don't know what's gonna happen. And to that I say, chuck that out the window because that is not going to be helpful for you at all. And oftentimes it is because those people have a lot of limiting beliefs and have prior experiences that have um, kind of affected those beliefs. Maybe at one point it was different. They had a negative experience and now they're like, I want nothing to do with that. And then kind of, if it's like your parents or something, they push that on you. So do not, I'm definitely listen because there are sometimes some helpful advice from our peers and from our parents. Like obviously most times our parents want what's best for us, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times too they may not know exactly what that is, and so you kind of have to look around and try to figure that out. And of course there's several people online and stuff that you can connect with
Yeah.
that will help you with that. So
You got to be honest with yourself. You have to do a self assessment. You have to be honest with yourself. And if you're like you said, I procrastinate. Like you identified a weakness.
yep.
You could work on it. But there are some, like if you don't do that, and then people are giving you advice, it's a complete lie. You're lying to yourself. And so the thing is, if you are honest with yourself and somebody comes in and go, you procrastinate a little bit, like, okay, that's not a lie. That's actually a truth. Like they see it. So then you can really see if their guidance or advice is real, because
Mhm.
most people's advice isn't meant to be negative. They're trying to protect you, right? They're trying to sit there and say, oh my God, if they go out and do something and they can lose it all, or they can do this, or they can use, and they see the negative sides of it and they're trying to protect you. but there's also a point where you got to run. If you want to run, you got to run. And you got to play the game of what's the worst that can happen. And if you play it out and you're like, the worst that happens is this, and I could live with that, then you know the answer. If you're 50 years old and you're going to chance it all on Bitcoin, and if you lose everything in your life, probably a bad gamble. Like there's certain things like you could really play the game out right and look at it and see, okay, if it worst that happens, I'm okay. Then do it. So.
Yeah. And definitely too, sometimes you just have to take a big risk. I mean, kind of pointing back to what you said about your father did that, and see how well that worked out. I mean, there are going to be times where it's not going to, and it's not everybody has great success right away, but the thing is, you would never know unless you take that chance. Like, you can't just think of like, oh, what if this happened, what if this happens, because then my counter to that is, what if the good things happen? What if you succeed in that business, or you find what you're truly passionate about? Like, you just have to, again, framing with mindset, like, that's just so important.
When it comes to business, the biggest mistake I see people make, this is a huge one too. They're very good at something. They're great at cooking. They're great at doing nails. They're great at doing hair, but they don't understand business, or they don't understand numbers. And they go, well, if I do this right, but it's so much bigger than that. Like, making pizza on the weekends is amazing. Running a business is completely different.
Mm.
And so if they don't play out the plan right, like, lay it all out in detail so that you could sit there and go, I am weak here. I don't understand this. I got this here. I'm good over here. Like, most people, they just go for it, but they're so limited in knowledge. And I've seen that all the time. Like, there's not enough understanding of what the business is supposed to be. So I'll give you the best visual I've ever come up with. Let's say me and you, our families come to us and they say, Gio, Samantha, you guys got to figure out the holiday vacation this year. So we're coming in, we're talking, we're figuring it out. Before we buy a plane ticket or rent a car, buy a hotel, we need to know where we're going. And here's why. Because the destination dictates the type of vehicle. If it's the Bahamas, there's no car, there's no bridge to the Bahamas. It's a boat or a plane, right? If it's Hawaii, same thing. If it's Alaska, you can get there multiple ways, even a bicycle. If it's the moon, it's a rocket ship. The destination dictates the vehicle. Now, why do I say that to you? Think about how many people in life choose the vehicle, their career, but never realize that that's the wrong thing to get you to your destination, because they never map out their life. They say things like, I want financial freedom. What does that mean? I want to travel. Where? Because travel doesn't mean anything. Nobody gets excited with the word I want to travel. They get excited when you go where, and they go, Italy. I want to touch the pyramids. What? Machu Picchu. France. That's exciting. Where in France? I want to touch the Eiffel Tower. Now I know what that means. So if you understand what the destination is of your life, then you could choose the vehicle. Guess what happened in 2008? I realized this is not going to get me here, and I have to make a choice. Either I ride the vehicle until it sinks and I never get what I want, or I have to change course. Think about how many people become history teachers and making 50 grand a year will never see the pyramids that they talk about and they teach on. Wrong vehicle. So as an entrepreneur, what are your goals and dreams? First, in detail. And then, can I get there with this? Because guess what happens? The t-shirt business you're dreaming of is not going to get you there. There's an honesty that has to happen. Oh, but I want to run a food truck because I'm good with tacos. Right, but you'll never make enough money to own a house over here. Whatever. I'm just making up. But you have to be honest with that. People do not do that. So then when you ask them, well, why are you doing this? Because of this. But it's not going to get you there. What math have you ever been taught? And there's a huge disconnect. Now the journey sucks and the destination sucks. That's such a big deal. So mapping out, what do I want? What are the things that if I really think about them, they ache inside? Like, I have to do that. The tears come out a little bit. Like, I want that house. I want to give my parents the keys to their home paid off. Okay, good. How are you going to do it being a barista at Starbucks? I can't. So what else is on the plate? I don't know. So we're just going to forget about this, or, You know what I'm saying? So that's a huge deal. What do you really, really want? And most people don't understand. They don't think that way. It's why people go to college, get a degree, and 60% never use the degree that they got. What a waste of money and time. Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge one. What do I want and can it get me there? And if it can't get me there, then I got to make a choice. You know, so I see that a lot when it comes to people's finances. They're not anywhere close because they don't know. There's just no thought process. The crazy thing is this: me and you have both been to weddings. People plan a year for 4 hours, or let's give it a weekend. They plan all year for 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, a couple nice nights. Yet when it comes to their goals and dreams, they plan a couple here, a little bit there. I'll get to it later. How the hell is that going to happen? It's insane. So there needs to be planning involved, deep planning. You know, that's a big thing that I don't see people do at all.
That was very, very well explained, and I loved every single part of that. Um, yeah, and it had me a thought too. Like, okay, say that you want to have a food truck, right? And you want to make tacos. Like the thing too is like, say that's actually what you want to do. Well, then you got to figure out like what makes you unique. Like, what are you doing differently? Because there's so many people out there that probably have a food truck that probably make tacos. But the whole thing is like, also too, it's like, okay, say you have something like that, then you really need to figure out like, okay, what makes me different? Like, what is my target audience? And like, you need to figure out all these other factors too, because it's like, okay, you can be like, okay, I know I want to do this. All right, well, like I said, there's so many other people that also want to do that. So what exactly are you going to do differently? And just kind of thinking about things like that as well, because you don't have, like you said, like a solid plan and a solid mission, and these pain points to connect it all together, to like really have this ultimate thing where you really see what you want to do, and what you're gonna do to help other people. Then like it just makes it a lot easier to fail, because again, like I've been watching a lot of Shark Tank lately, and that too is like a big thing, like you're saying, is like people are like, okay, I want to do this, but then like they don't know all the numbers, they don't know why exactly they want to do it. Oh, it's just because it's fun and I'm passionate about it. Okay, but like, what do you do differently? What is it
Yeah.
exactly that you do? So
Well,
that is a big part of it.
well, think about this, right? Let's say you're great at making tacos. You're passionate. You love them. You love everything about them. If you own a taco truck and you're crushing it, you're doing well, but you don't understand business well enough, it's not large enough, and you can't put your kids in the schools they want. You can't live in the house. You have to rent instead of buy. You can't go on that trip. You know, your mom calls you when she's 80 and she needs hearing aids and you can't help her. You're going to hate tacos pretty soon, because
Mhm.
what you do every day can't get you what you want. It doesn't have to, listen, it can be both. It doesn't have to be either or, but it only happens when you plan it all out, you know? Because I sat with a woman one time and I remember her telling me, I want to make t-shirts. Okay, good. Why? I love it. Great. And then when I asked her what she wanted to make a year, she's like, I want to make 100 grand. I think it was like, I want to make up the numbers. Like, I want to make $50,000 a month in income. Like, you want to make 600 grand a year doing t-shirts. And then when she started telling me, I'm like, it was like, well, women entrepreneurs. I'm like, you just cut out half the market, but okay, women entrepreneurs is big. And then, but only this age group. And then we're gonna sell it for so. I'm like, you haven't thought this through well enough. I go, because unless you're Calvin Klein, you're not gonna make that kind of money. But she was gonna drop $20,000, and she's like, yeah, but why are you being negative? I go, I'm not being negative. I'm looking at the things you haven't seen yet. I'm looking at holes in your game that if you can't answer, they're gonna come up to haunt you. Oh, but no. And I go, listen, you need to answer these fundamental questions. Where are you getting like? And as we went through it, you can see that there was no thought process. It was just a dream. But again, I like cooking. If I said to you, I'm dreaming about dinner, and you go, what is it? I'm going to do this, this, and this. You go, what are the ingredients? I have no idea. Where are you going to get it from? I'm not sure. What's the cost? I'll figure it out. You're like, what? Wait, this is not going to happen. Like, it's going to be a disaster. But if I said to you, here's what it is, here's the recipes, here's the time frames, here's the cost, here's the list already made, here's the ingredients, I got all the cooking equipment, you're like, oh, this is going down. You're excited. But it takes planning, you know,
Mm.
a lot of planning. and you won't see all the angles. But my God, you can't be halfway. It can't be everything. There's going to be pitfalls and potholes that you don't see. Um, but a lot of people go into it completely upside down, and you can just see the writings on the wall. They don't see it, but they're blinded by their own ego or something else than the reality. And that's sad because you're going to drop money and time and waste it, and it didn't have to happen.
That happens a lot too on Shark Tank, is that people will go on and then, like you said, like not have everything planned out, and then the sharks just look at them like, okay, well, you don't know all these things, so like how do you expect people to want to invest? And the same thing for how do you expect people to want to buy what you're selling when you don't know everything yourself? Like you have, like you said, know the numbers, know exactly what are you going to do. And also too, it's like, okay, you want to make t-shirts, well then you kind of have to figure out what sets you apart. You have to understand that it's not gonna be as much money at starting out as you think. Like it might happen, because the thing is too, it's like it's based on the niche that you pick. So like t-shirts, I mean, oftentimes, like you said, unless you're Calvin Klein, it's like they are a more lower priced margin versus, you know what I mean? So that's something where you got to figure out what you're going to do, how you're going to scale it, what products you're going to introduce. Because if you're going to create t-shirts, you're not going to just scale to 600,000 just off t-shirts. You're going to need to think of other things to go along with that, because that's ultimately how you can keep going and keep
Yeah,
scaling.
100%. Do you have relationships with people, vendors? Have you looked at people that can handle your volume? Is it good quality? I was like, you got to get a shirt and wash it 10 times, 15, 20 times. Why? I'm like, because what if it's not good quality? What if you're just relying on their word and it comes back and you've sold 1,000 shirts? You're out of business. You're done.
Mm.
Like there's all these things matter. Because I always look at like, what are the negatives? Can I avoid as many of the negatives as possible? Then it makes it a lot easier to succeed.
Mm.
So for sure.
Yeah. And a lot of things we're sharing, it's like, say you have something like that, we're sharing this because it is 100% possible, but you just really have to sit down and think about all the things, weigh all the pros and cons, kind of think about what ultimately would be the best strategy. Because, if you don't have a well thought out plan, it's just, again, like I said, setting yourself up to fail. So, just really think things through. You don't have to rush. And a perfect thing is, a lot of people love to try out things. So when you're starting to create a product, ask people on like Facebook something if they want to try out your product, and they get testimonials. Like there's a lot of ways to utilize your resources and to figure these things out. So
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Use that community, especially with entrepreneurs now, and with Facebook and groups. You can be around people that'll genuinely go, yeah, for sure. I'll be the guinea pig for you. Because that's the way we have more connectiveness now than ever. That could you imagine, 20 or 30 years ago, what it was in that internet? It was the circle you knew, and that was pretty much it. Now it's everybody.
yes, perfect. There's no better time than now, and especially too with thing we talked about with my guest Jordan Suber and a little bit with Hayden, is about how much personal brand now is important, and like how much things have changed, because now it's like you can really build a business and stuff off your branding, and just being able to like be like, okay, well, now I don't have to base it off something else, like, oh, a business or something that, what I mean, make it solely off that. It's like people are interested in you. Like personal branding is so important right now. So like utilize that,
Yeah,
people want to hear about you and your story, and get to know you, and are interested in things that are important to you. So
yeah, I agree with that. That's true. Very true. Now, for sure.
yes. I know we're kind of nearing the hour mark. I just wanted to ask before we kind of wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share with us tonight?
Wow. I mean, coming from the finance side, in the information age, here, let me give you my soapbox. In the information age, there is so much information about money and finance. The problem is right now that a lot of it's not what people think. It's very sensationalized. It's very geared towards commissions. And so you could watch 2 YouTube videos and make a lifelong decision based on production value of the video. And I see people a lot doing that. So when I talked about mapping out your goals, this is what I would tell people. What are your financial goals and dreams personally? What is that big stuff you want? And if you're an entrepreneur, can I take those numbers and build it into my business model? For example, let's say you want to retire at 65, you want to have, a couple $1 million saved, no debt, college paid off for your kids, whatever it is. We know what that is. Now we can reverse engineer it and go backwards and say, hey, listen, your business needs to produce $500 a month in monies to invest. Well, I don't have that right now. Well, hold on, there's a disconnect. We need to do this to have that. This business, this taco stand has to produce this for me to get to that. It has to be built into the numbers. Then what a lot of business owners do is they go, I'll get to that eventually. It never happens. Think about it. You always pay the light bill. Taxes always get paid. Rent always gets paid. You need to have part of the numbers in your business, you. So that has to be built first. Because I don't care how good of tacos you are. If you retire and then you have to go work a part-time job, that whole journey has been miserable. You're going to hate tacos. So build it first. Sit with somebody and go, and this is what I do for people, is teach them. This is how everything works. Here are the tools of money and finance. Here's how to build a game plan. Here's how to take a game plan and then break it apart to build it into your life. If you do that right, like, look, if I would have known what I'm telling you now, and I could go back to the day my dad bought the business, and I whispered in his ear, take a quarter, 25 cents, and invest it. Every gallon of paint you sell, 25 cents. He'd have $4 million right now. Can you imagine? A little thing, but because of understanding. So when I look at this and I talk to people, especially people younger, I'm like, you're going to learn this one way or the other. But take this knowledge, build it into your business model, and you'll be exponentially better. So it goes back to very fundamentals. Where am I? What do I want? Look, I'll give you the best visual. I gave you the visual about the vacations. What state are you in? I don't remember.
Maine.
You're in Maine. I'm in Miami. So we're like 30 hours apart, 35 hours probably. If I said to you, Samantha, the next podcast you do live, do it in my office. And you say, okay, I'm in. You're going to ask me one question. What's the address? And you're going to put into one tool, GPS. What does the GPS tell you? Make a left, make a right, slow down, alternate routes, whatever. Can you imagine I said to you, Samantha, it's Miami. Head south. When you see palm trees, you'll be close. You'll figure it out. You would literally say, I'm a crazy person. Who's going to go on a 35-hour road trip without a GPS? Would you agree?
Right.
Okay. What if I said to you, I'm not giving you the address, rent a Ferrari and drive faster? Dude, it's not the speed. It's what's the destination? Now, why do I say that to you? Going on a 35-hour road trip would be insane. Everybody, me and are going to go on 10, 15, 20, 30, 40-year journeys to their retirement, to their goals and dreams. If they don't have a roadmap, they're never going to get there. Life will throw traffic at you. Good years and bad years and recessions and a good president and a bad president and another bad president and Congress and taxes and mortgages and braces and schools and we're supposed to navigate this crazy journey without any guidance system. It doesn't matter if you're a world-class, make tacos, podcasts, whatever, you will leave so much on the table. So what I tell people is you build a map first. Where am I at? You know where you're at. What do I want? Now we have the points. What are the things I need to do to get there? And if I'm a business owner, boom, can I place it in here and can it get me there? Oh my God, it can get you there even faster. Great. Because guess what? When life throws those traffic at you, you don't change the destination, you change, right? Maybe the route a little bit. So if anybody remembers anything from me, build a roadmap. It's what I do. It's the only thing I do for people. At that point, it becomes apparent what's needed or not needed, And you could start, people like, when do I start? When do you turn on your GPS? Before you leave the driveway is the best time because there's more routes appear. So when somebody's like, I'm thinking about starting, I don't have any money yet, build your game plan just so you know where to go. It doesn't mean you're in the game. It doesn't mean your business started. Build your game plan first because it'll make other decisions much easier.
Very well said. And I 100% agree. And don't be afraid to kind of just create a plan and then go with the flow and adjust, and don't think that like, oh, I have to have it perfectly figured out, or because it's like things are going to happen along the way. You're never going to like set a plan and then that's exactly going to be it. Things are going to happen, little hurdles. You might fall back a little bit. You might have a really good point. Like, there's going to be lots of up and downs, but the whole point is to, like you said, have that roadmap and just kind of figure out the vision for your life. Because I mean, if you just say, oh, I'm going to just do this and aimlessly do it, it's like it's going to take you a lot longer. You're going to be like, how am I going to get there? What do I do? How do I deal with these hurdles? um who do I talk to? It's like, just start thinking, just start writing down things, start
Yeah,
formulating a plan. There's so
yeah,
many resources out there to help you. There's so many communities. You are not alone in this journey. And just, take some time to figure it out. Don't feel like you have to rush, or, but also don't wait to start, because, there's no better time than now, like I said. And you don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow. So you have to utilize the time you have, but give yourself grace, and
oh
don't
yeah,
over stress the little things. It's all going to work out. So that was just what I wanted to add to that.
yeah.
Um, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on tonight and sharing your journey and all these amazing tips, because I know it's super helpful. And I love everything that you've shared and what you're doing to help people, and just your whole journey. I mean, I love to talk with you. I know the few times we talked, I'm like, you're such a nice person, and it's really nice to get to connect with other like-minded individuals. So I
I
really,
appreciate you for sure.
of course. Um, for those who are wondering, could you tell us where they could find you? What links, like social media? Is there a website they could find you
So
at?
yeah, so I'm building a website right now. I actually have a cool technology that we're demoing right now that's going to make building the map, believe it or not, pretty simple. Right now, the easiest way, I tell people to email me. I'll give you my email right now. Why? Because we can talk, we can converse. If it's just about the journey you want to learn, great. If it's a tip to be an entrepreneur, like I love networking and connecting. So I don't care when people reach out like, what book are you reading? I don't that's those are all good things to me. So Geo, like you could see it on the screen, geosavo21 at gmail.com. I'll have some major stuff that I'm going to be posting soon, but right now, keep it as authentic as possible. If you like this, email me and then we can have a conversation for sure.
Awesome. And is that the best way to reach you, or are there other ways they could reach you? Like, do you have Instagram or?
I'm on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, uh, Instagram a little bit, but mostly Facebook and LinkedIn is where I use because of the networking pieces. I'm in a ton of groups. That's kind of where me and you met. Um, but like once I meet somebody and build a relationship with them, phone calls and Zoom meetings. I love Zooms because you can share things and stuff like that. So I'm really interested in continuing to build a network that I've built and adding great people, um, because I think networking is the key to everything. It's honestly how I built this business, and when I look back in all those years, how we built every business.
I agree. And thank you for sharing that, because I am sure tons of people are going to love to want to connect with you. Um, and um, I'll just let you guys know where you can find me. I know I kind of said that a little bit in the beginning, but as for the Minds on a Mission podcast, you can find us on pretty much everything. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Amazon Music, / Audible, Deezer, Podbean, and I think Buzzsprout. I think that's all the places you can find Minds on a Mission. As for where you you can find me on here on Facebook, just looking up Smith Bailey, and for Instagram and TikTok, it's Sam B Daily Motivation. The best way to really reach me is probably on Messenger. I'm most active on Messenger. That's my favorite way to network with people. So if you want to reach out to me, whether that's to, ask for advice or just have conversation, or, maybe you want to be a guest on the podcast, you can absolutely reach out to me there. And for our next guest, we are going to be having Juliet. I'm not exactly sure how to say her last name, but you'll see in the end screen. I'm going to ask. I'm so bad with names, like pronouncing things, because I'm like, I don't want to say it wrong. But yeah, so we'll have Juliet on Friday. I can't wait to get to talk to her. And yeah, we just want to thank you guys for coming on tonight and for giving us the chance to talk with you guys and share some awesome tips. So we hope you guys have a wonderful night, and I will see you guys on Friday. Say bye.